this one area, particularly when we talk about rape in relation to Islamic law, which is quite controversial, and you've just mentioned it. I mean, there are some who say that, I mean, marital rape, there's nothing like marital rape within Islamic law. And a lot of people look at it from the semantic point of view, indicating that, well, you cannot, if you say marital rape, that is, I mean, it's inconsistent in relation to, so you cannot talk about marital rape. Even though that name, when we talk about Ightiṣāb zawji, that is marital rape as a term, you won't find that in the classical books. It's not, I mean, it's not in the classical books. They use another term. You know, you find out that, I mean, they use within Islamic law, a woman can bring a case against the husband if the man commits violence, sexual violence against her. I mean, they don't call it marital rape. They call it, I mean, the husband committing sexual violence against the woman. In many of the classical books, they refer to an ayah in the Quran, and you know this. You find out that, I mean, there's an ayah in the Quran in which, I mean, Allah says that yasalunaka anil mahid. They ask you about the menstrual period. That is when women are doing menstrual. The Quran says, Allah says, "Qul say who are Adha." Tell that it is a pain. It is painful. I mean, therefore, do not fa'tazilun nisa fil mahid. So keep away from your wives and do not have sexual intercourse with them when they are having their menstrual period, because the Quran says it's a pain. So in the classical books, they indicate that, well, now, for example, if a husband, you know, wants to have sexual relations with the wife while she's in this situation because it's a pain for them, and the woman says no, and the man forces to her, the woman can bring a case against him, because, I mean, it's, you get it, they consider that to be a sexual violence against the woman. Now, if you look at it from that point of view, you find out that actually now contradicts that hadith that you indicate. I will not say contradict, because we have to try to find a balance. There's an hadith, as you mentioned, which a lot of people point to, that the Prophet indicates that if a husband calls the wife to bed and she refuses, that the angels curse her until the morning, and they tend to look at it. But we have to balance this in relation to the fact that, well, it cannot be absolute. You know, it cannot be absolute, in the sense that there are certain times in the Quran where if the man, such as, I mean, when she's having her menses, when the man calls the woman, she can say no. And if the man forces himself upon her in that period, it can be considered as sexual violence against her, because she has that right at that point in time. The Quran says don't have sexual relations. And many, I mean, the modern scholars have now indicated, actually, to say this, that if Allah says in that verse, that is Quran chapter 2, verse 222, that the reason why you should not have sexual intercourse with your woman is that because it is a pain. You know, it talks about that it's a pain. Now, if that is the case, now any other situation that causes the woman pain, did you get the point? Any other situation that causes the woman pain, you can't do it. So it's not only about, I mean, have sexual intercourse. If a woman doesn't want to have sexual intercourse, if you force upon her, you are causing her pain. And in such situation as well, you know, she can bring a case against you, indicating that you've caused her pain. Now, Allah says clearly, if you look in Surah Al-Rum, Quran chapter 30, Allah says, part of the signs of Allah, that He has created wives for you, mates for you, so that you live with them in peace. And He has put in peace and contentment between you. That is good living. That is the basis of marriage. That is, I mean, it should be a relationship that is a reciprocal in a good way, and things like that. So if you look at that, and there's another ayah actually for us to be able to appreciate, whereby, I mean, Allah talks about the fact that, I mean, Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, La yahillu lakum an tarithu nisa karhan. It is not permissible for you, it was not permissible for you to take women, you know, to take women karhan, by when they are not happy with it. That is when they object to it. You find this, I mean, Quran chapter 4, verse 19. Allah says it is not permissible for you to inherit. The term used there is inherit. It is not permissible for you to inherit women against their will. Karhan. You know, it says it is not permissible for you to take wives against their will. And this is where consent is important. Even in marriage itself, it says don't take women against their will. Now, therefore, even in marriage, you cannot have sexual relations with them against their will. And that same verse in Quran chapter 4, verse 19, going down, Allah says, وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, and relate with them in kindness. Don't take women against their will, but to relate with them in kindness. So if you look at all these, one will be able to see that, the rule of Islam is not, and and we find a lot of hadith really in relation to that regulates sexual relations with our wives, that is within marriage. There's a very important hadith which relates to this very, very well, in which the Prophet said, none of you should pounce on his wife like an animal. Specific hadith, the Prophet said, none of you should pounce on his wife like an animal, but let there be a messenger before you have sexual relations with your wives. And the Sahaba said, what is the messenger? And the Prophet said, the messenger is kissing and foreplay and talking. Now you find out that, so that actually indicates that, if we follow this, there will actually be no time to force yourself to rape your wife, because, the Prophet says, don't pounce on them like an animal, but send a messenger forth. What is the messenger? Foreplay, kissing, and also talking about it. Now, when you are talking and the wife is saying that, look, for a particular reason, no, I can't do this, and you'll be able to appreciate, and you will not be able to, and also it says, la darar wa la dirar. Let there be no harm or no reciprocation of harm. Now, if you look at this, one will be able to there are so many traditions, so people who talk about the fact that it doesn't exist within Islamic law, perhaps are just covering up. Now, let me give you one more hadith. The Prophet talked about the most awful man. He said the most awful man, there are three ways that he described the most awful man. And one of them is that the most awful man is a man who comes to his wife and pounces on her before speaking to her or playing with her, and quickly satisfies his own needs before the wife can satisfy her own pleasure. So if you look at all this, then you see, it's a two-way thing. Sexual relationship between Islam recognize that, both parties have to benefit and enjoy from it. So if you look at it from that, even though classical books does not use that terminology, they do recognize that the husband can be guilty of sexual violence against their wife. So if what we mean by marital rape is committing sexual violence against the wife, then it is prohibited under Islamic law. So when people talk about, a lot of people who say, no, it has no place in Islam, they are just using semantics. They will say that you won't find this terminology. But there's another, it is explained as sexual violence against the wife. And this is, if I understand it properly, this is what marital rape means, isn't it? So putting semantics aside, Islamic law prohibits it, both from the Quranic perspective and from the traditions of the Prophet.